Hi, Rhian.
How are you?
Hi, good. So, welcome to For the Love of Group Fitness podcast. Um, I was trying to think back actually before I got on this call. How long have we known each other? When did I meet you?
You did my body balance initial training with Andrew, and that was on release 41. So I can't do the maths, but it was a long time ago.
41. That's like 2008. No, 2004. I don't know, something like that.
Maybe 6 or
Isn't it
7, maybe, because it
2004?
wasn't my first. Pump was my first, and that was 2005. So it would have been a couple of years after that.
So 2008 probably. I'm just trying to think when I went because I filmed 44. But yeah. Oh, long time.
It's
And
a long
then,
time.
yeah. So actually, before we get stuck in with our conversation on chat, for our listeners who don't know you, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do today.
So my name's Rhian. I have worked in group fitness. You made me think of the maths. I was like, oh my gosh, it's nearly 19 years. So I started 2004, 2005. So I started with my exercise to music, then shifted, did my PT quite soon after because I realised if I actually wanted to do more stuff in the industry, I needed more than just that exercise to music. And then from there, very much just fell into Les Mills teaching, although I'd done it since I was a teenager. And has always been the way actually with me. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. So at the gym where I was a member, they were running a body pump module, and the studio coordinator just rang me, and I was in London on my PT course, and she was like, "It's this weekend. Do you want to go?" I'm like, "Okay." So it was back in the day when we'd get the materials on the day, the 3 days over the 2
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah.
That was terrifying. Um, and then it's just gone from there, really. So I went from there, went to work in corporate, project managed open sites there, then went completely self-employed in about 2010. Um, so I was doing group fitness, massage, was Pilates qualified at that point as well. And then got onto the tap team, the Les Mills tap team in the UK. I think it was 2013. So I'm coming up for 10 years on that, which is super cool. Um, Evolved into yoga, although I've always done yoga. I've done it since I was a teenager. I didn't do my teacher training until 2016, my first one. Never intended to teach, but here we are. I got back, and literally the week after, my friend, who you'll know, Leslie Loader, shout out to Leslie, literally just messaged me. She was opening a new studio at her gym, and she was like,
Yeah.
"On the schedule." I was like, "Oh, am I?" And then I went on to do some forest yoga training later on. So I've been doing that online, done it a little bit in the community, doing workshops. Yeah, all sorts of things. Fingers in lots of pies.
So when you started, you just going back, you mentioned you went into corporate project
Mhm.
management. So were you teaching part time, like on the side,
So that corporate stuff
or were
was
you separate?
fitness facilities, corporate fitness facilities. So
Ah,
where I live, there's lots of big blue chips like Dell and Microsoft and all
okay.
sorts of things. So that was the work I did there.
So did you actually have like a proper job, as people say?
A proper job. I was in charge of health and safety and profit and loss and all that grown up stuff. I was like,
Really?
oh wow, it's mad, isn't it? I was like, okay. And then I just thought, you know what? Um, I was still teaching a lot. I had to teach some classes inside that work,
Yeah.
obviously. That's usually how it works. And then I was teaching a lot outside for, financial reasons
Yeah.
primarily, but also just as headspace, because that's what teaching really gives me. And
Can
it just
I can I just stop you? The postman just knocked on the window. Sorry, I'll have to edit this bit.
it's all right.
Oh dear.
What is it? You have to tell me what it is now.
This is so bad.
Right.
You know, the post has been so bad. So bad.
What is it? It looks
Oh,
like
it's to both of us.
big.
So it's still not something I've ordered, right? Because it's both of us. Do you know he never got his birthday card? He never arrived his birthday card. What's this from? Oh, it's from my upline. We got a Christmas tree for his birthday, a DIY Christmas tree, but a real one, not a plastic one. So he actually got a little baby tree with soil and baubles and fairy lights, and you have to build it yourself with the soil. So we got that for his birthday, and now we've got Christmas present from them. I shouldn't open it. I'll leave it.
I'm going to. You have to open it at the end. I'm curious.
At the end. I know so much. Cool. So where do we get to? Your corporate. You're doing.
Yeah, I was the grown-up lady, and doing lots of classes outside, and then it just got to the point where health actually made me make the choice, the jump, because I think I was working 57 hours a week.
What?
Yeah, and it was too much. There was some big health stuff going on because of that. So it was kind of, what was I going to do? And at that point, at that time, so we're talking, 12 years ago, financially, the better decision was to just teach, because I could earn doing 27 hours a week. What I was earning doing 57.
What?
Yeah. So this is, I wasn't paid a lot to do a lot at the gym. So yeah, I didn't want to leave. I would have stayed, I think, but there wasn't any room in the budget for it. So there we are. It allowed me actually to focus. It really focused my mind. I think very early on in my level 2, I don't know if you remember her, a lady called Alex Carr, who used to deliver for
I know the name. Yeah, I know the name.
My level 2, and I remember sitting there and just thinking, you are incredible. I want to do what you do. She was so clean, so clear in her delivery. She was, just incredible. So I think making that leap really made me focus on the Les Mills programs, as that was my focus really at that point, and drove me more towards becoming a trainer.
It's interesting, isn't it? I was chatting to Matt Thaxton, and it was sitting there on a training course and going, I want to do what you do. I think that's probably the story for quite a few people.
Yeah. And I think that's always at the back of my mind when I'm delivering. Not that I want to be that person, but you just have to be mindful that you might be. And how you then deliver the experience according to that.
So you mentioned earlier on that you've been participating in classes, through your teens, did you say?
Yeah, I think I first joined a gym when I was about 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your reason for joining a gym at that age, and how did you end up in classes?
I think so. I've danced from a very young age, from about 3, when apparently I threw a massive tantrum about it. So I'd done a lot of dance training, and I was getting to the point where you get to the higher level exams, and you've got to be more focused about how you work on your strengths and your flexibility and your fitness and all that sort of stuff. So that drove me to the gym. And I don't think this is dissimilar to a lot of people who come from that background. Like, the gym is pretty boring if you're used to moving to music rather than just having it as the background music as you would in the gym. So when I found classes, I was like, dude, I did not know this was a thing, bar the fact that my mum used to have a Jane Fonda record.
Really? A record?
I think someone's got it still somewhere.
Wow.
Like this tiny little leotard and her leg warmers and her big boofy. It's incredible. So yeah, I went into the class, and I think it was body pump, the first thing I ever did. I died a death.
I died a death last week when I had to cover pump after not having taught it for 9 years.
I loved it. And then I think the thing with the weight training for me is like I feel proper badass when I do weight training, like proper badass. So I really loved that because I'd done a lot of classical stuff, so it was very very big contrast. And then they also had combat at the tiny gym that I went to. That was great for me because it was arms, legs, everything. So everything that you could ever want. And then they were the two main classes I did. Balance was on the timetable, I think, but it wasn't really at times that I could do. So I went to it sporadically and did love it, but it just didn't work very well. And then
Mm,
after that, again, working up through the ballet grades particularly, um, I needed to get really flexible really fast for a particular exam. So I managed to find a yoga teacher who had been a professional ballet dancer, but had to retire because she'd had a car accident. Um, but she was Ashtanga trained. So
mm,
that's how I fell into yoga. Ashtanga was my first practice. Again, that completely owned me the first time I did it. I couldn't walk downstairs for 3 days after my first Ashtanga practice. So that's kind of how I found my way into it. And then I was still going through school, A levels, and there's just that little voice all the time, and but it was always there going, I kind of want to do this. This is the path, but I wasn't necessarily brave enough to make the jump. Let's say at 18.
mm,
And I was very shy actually. So going to university and doing the degree I did was really useful because it did bring me out of my shell a little bit. So then I could make the jump later on.
mm. What degree did you do?
I did French and Spanish.
Hmm.
I had to talk to people. Make you talk to people when you've run out of toilet roll. You have to go and ask for it.
Oh, I was. Do you remember? Yeah, there was someone else, wasn't there, on the trainer team, Tanya McGinnity. I don't know if you remember her. She was on the team for very long, Irish, and her degree was in French and Spanish.
I
Lives
did.
in
I
Spain
know
now.
the name. Yeah, I know the name.
Mm, mm. Cool. Do you use your degree?
Everyone always asks this, not directly, I wouldn't say, but because a lot of my degree was translation interpreting, the manipulation of language skill I use
Mm,
a
mm,
lot in teaching, but also in the assessing and the IQA and the coaching space.
mm, hmm. You mentioned also that you're shy.
Mm.
I'm shy. I'm introverted as well. How do you find the group fitness industry?
I struggled a lot. I'm shy, but I I'm not necessarily. I'm quite stubborn with it, but I found it very not difficult, but I it made me nervous because there are a lot of big personalities around teaching, so I wasn't really sure how I was gonna fit into that
Mm,
because I am and always view myself as the slightly weird geeky one. I'm totally all right with that now. I've just grown into that, and I'm like, well, this is it. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. But initially, I was surrounded by very, very kind of high I types extroverts, very sociable creatures. And
mm.
that's what me, like, I will go and I'll teach and I'll be so nice to you. You will get the best of me when I teach. But then I'm like, please, can I go home because I'm tired?
I
I
get
need,
it.
I need some alone time now, please, gang. So it took me a little while to get comfortable with that. Um, yeah, and it took me, I think the thing that really always struck me, I did once teach body attack, more than once, but I trained in it. And I think, we talk about this when we deliver some of the modules, but it probably took me about 2 years to find like my way of teaching body attack that I felt really comfortable with because I'm
Mm,
not like the typical body attack person. So above and beyond it being so physically hard, it took me a long time. Which is, when I then went to balance with you and Andrew, I was like, oh my God, why did I not do this before? Seriously, what was the delay? Idiot.
mm. So, how did you then find that transition from going from being an instructor to
Mm.
then being part of the trainer as the presenter team for Les Mills. And back then the team was also much smaller,
Yeah.
and being shy,
Mm.
etc. How was that transition?
I think, do you know what? Because I'd been teaching for about 8 years before I got on the team, my confidence in my ability as the instructor was there. So I didn't need necessarily to doubt that.
Mm,
Um, but it was quite daunting, particularly when you go to certain places in the country to deliver those quarterlies, because you know them, you know
mm,
you've seen how they react, you've seen all like and heard all like the changing room talk, and then you're like, oh god, I've got to stand in front of these people now. And I think for me, my thing has always been, do you know what? At the be all and end of this all, I am still an instructor, actually. I am being given additional skills and some additional information and stuff. But at the end of the day, I am at the front of the room sharing my instructor stuff with you. And that's how I've managed that. I've never really liked standing in front of the room thinking, oh, me teacher, you not. I don't like that. I much rather have the interaction and actually shift the focus off me a little bit and let
mm,
them do the work, because actually that helps them learn better anyway. So
mm.
um, when they are working together, and I think that's important too, because this is a really isolating job sometimes, particularly if it's you're only doing your freelance fitness stuff, if that's your solely
Yeah.
thing. It can be quite lonely in a lot of ways. So in a way it suits me for that, because I'm quite happy to be by myself, but you have to be careful of that, I think, and get the balance right.
Yeah, no, I think it is, and instructors, so especially if they're freelancers, you're teaching in several different venues. You rock up, you teach, you leave, and there's no real support network necessarily,
Yeah,
unless you create it yourself or you go looking for it. But if someone's naturally shy or naturally introverted, then they probably don't,
yeah,
and you're kind of left to your own devices, really.
mm,
So, because I remember joining the trainer team, the Les Mills team in the UK, when it was just body pump, body combat, body balance, just
yeah,
and they were all extroverts and me. And I was just like, it was just like I was tired, just like not even saying anything, just sitting there, with the energy. It was like, yeah, and having to kind of cope with that, on an energetic level.
mm.
It's
I often
it's,
feel
it's
like when we all get together, I feel like I say an awful lot. I really love you, but I have to go now. But we've got to a point where we can actually say that to each other, and it's not weird. Nobody gets weird about it, because we've done quite a lot of work around that, haven't we? So it's quite
yeah,
nice to be able to go, I have to go to bed now, sorry.
yeah. Unlike the old days where you like had to stay up to drink, had to do all this stuff. It's funny. Uh,
And then get up at 5 for body pump, and you're like, oh God, no.
uh, so what is it that you actually love about group fitness?
I think, for me, it's sharing what it does for me. So the thing for me, it's about getting people in their bodies. I think we've just come so far apart from our bodies, um, and actually to feel good, you've got to be in it, and you've got to know it, and you can only get it better when you know it. Um, so I think that gives my delivery, whatever I'm delivering, quite a strong educational slant, whether I intend it or not. That's just how it's kind of happened. Um, and also it's just so interesting learning. I am an introvert, but I'm so fascinated by people. I am
Mm,
just fascinated by them, and all the little random things that they do. Like even yesterday, this guy in my yoga class, I had no idea. Really nice chap, just comes in, does his stuff, and he said, "Oh, I won't be able to come anymore because I've got a new job." Fine, fair enough. Um, as a teacher. I said, oh, what are you teaching? He said, oh, well, I used to be a philosophy teacher. And you can tell, like, just from the conversations you have with him, that he's like super clever. He said, oh, I'm going to go and teach English, blah, blah, blah. And then I write, and he's like, oh, and then I write this blog and blah, 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 blah. I was like, that is fascinating. And I just love those little things that you learn about people that you wouldn't necessarily learn in a more traditionally corporate environment, because you're not necessarily encouraged to share that, because it is people's leisure time, isn't it? So I think it's learning about people and learning how their minds work and helping them. It's very important to me that I be of service. So yeah, giving them what they need and what they want so that they can just feel better. I think that's just it. This is a really long way of just saying I want to make people feel better, really. Stream of consciousness happening.
Help people feel better.
Yeah.
Cool. How do you see that? So, you said earlier on that first and foremost, you're an instructor. And now, you've for going on 10 years now, you've been part, in that role of being a trainer where you're training instructors. So what do you get from being that? Because it's a big step, isn't it? Especially for someone who's shy, to firstly teach a class. And then, like you say, to make that next step where you're now teaching what are technically your peers, and what they say in the changing rooms and stuff like that. What do why do you put yourself in that position?
It's that sense of fulfillment of what you feel is your purpose, I guess. So and I'm not sure right now if I could do anything else. Not that I wouldn't be capable of doing anything else, because ultimately, skills are learnable. Yeah, it just feels like it's what I'm good at, and I think I'm quite lucky actually to have found that. This is what I'm strong in. This is what I have to offer, and I'm actually in a position where I can do it. So it gives me that sense of satisfaction through work, which again, I don't know if this is a Western thing or whatever, but oftentimes I think there's a sense that work has to be a punishment, or it has to be really onerous and not enjoyable. Where I've always been very led by, do you know what, if this doesn't really resonate and call me, I'm just not going to do it, because I won't be very good at it, actually. I'm very much an all-in type of person. I'm either doing it or I'm not. So yeah, it's really got to make my soul sing, without meaning to sound like a total hippie.
It's okay being a total hippie.
Morning into a hippie moment.
Cool. What if you look at how many years now in group fitness? Did you say coming on to 20? No, is it
19.
Yeah, 20 years. What do you see as the craziest thing you've ever done for the love of group fitness?
Oh, I do silly things all the time. If you're friends with me on Facebook, the dress up.
You dress up a lot.
This year, I have to say, but it's been out of control at some point. Before lockdown, we've had like inflatable turkey suits, the nativity with, baby Jesus being born, and all sorts during abstracts and all sorts of things. It's just madness. And then, oh gosh, I think it wasn't mad, but I did say, I remember when Anthony said to me he might get chosen for filming, I was like, oh, I'll go. You just flippantly go, I'll come and watch you if you get sent for filming. Lo and behold, like 8 weeks later, he rings me, and I was like, oh, damn it, I'm going to have to find like £100 now for the flight, because I've got to follow through on this, haven't I? So I did go and see him. So I've just done mental things, really. But it's the dress up, I think, that round here, certainly me and our buddies are known for. But occasionally, like, I used to teach combat until I had a little car accident. It wasn't serious, but I don't teach it regularly anymore. So I'll get wheeled out for like the charity events. you know, and you're like, all right, I'm not that old. Come on. And I remember once, do you remember when we did the workout for water stuff?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I came out of retirement for one combat class. I raised nearly £400 just to come out of retirement for a combat class. I was like, wow, okay, there's a lesson here. There's a lesson here.
And what's the lesson?
Know your worth, gang.
Mm.
Because do you know what? If people, if people really want it, then they'll pay for it. But that surprised even me. I have to say that, I was like, oh, I'll maybe get 100 quid just for giggles, it will help. And then it literally just kept ticking up and up and up and up. I was like, oh my God, I was never even that good at combat compared to some of the other stuff. Do you know what I mean? You're like, and I don't think I even taught the whole class either. But anyway, lots of people got some clean water, and that's amazing.
Oh dear, the things we do, the things we do. Now, is there anything looking back at your teaching career? Is there anything that you've done that you think, maybe I'm not so proud of that, or, well, that was a mistake or regret, or
I think initially, we all, well, certainly for me, you get very excited when you first start, don't you? Like super excited, everything's so exciting. And I was thinking about this just before we came on, and I think I don't regret anything. Let's just start there. But I think probably when I get the younger instructors coming through now, I try to encourage them to be a little bit more discerning with what they're doing rather than just, racking up, let's say, the certifications. I'm like, okay, really think about what you're going to do with it, because it's not cheap. Good training isn't cheap. So you really need to think about what you actually intend to do with it. And if you intend not to do anything with it, that is fine, right? But you just need to be really clear on the intention of the training for yourself. Because if you want it to, be an income stream, then you have to be in it for the long run. So you've got to be, for example, really clear, is it something that I can physically tolerate for a long time? Because these things take a toll, right? So yeah, I think that's probably what I would do. That being said, again, right place, right person, right time. I didn't pay for a lot of my training. So, when it comes along, I've just been yes, 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 yes. But again, if you're paying for it and investing it from your own pocket, that's a different consideration, I think.
Yeah, because it's so easy, isn't it? And I, I've got friends who kind of go, oh, I'm doing this course, I'm doing that course, I'm doing this course and that course, and which is great. I mean, I love learning, but at some point you've got to stop and think, hang on a minute, how much does this cost me? Yeah. I never even calculated how much I spent on my yoga teacher training. That's 8 years of training, of driving across the country, accommodation, books on top, it's just, I totally agree. I think people need to have just a little bit more awareness of that. Yeah. Where do you see our industry going? Where do you see group fitness going?
This is such a big question, isn't it? And there's so many potential strings to this, because when we would have first started, there was really only one demographical group in there, really, and it was, you had to have, a relative level of disposable income to be able to join gyms. But there's a big shift in everything. It's really open to everyone, and it's how do you get to everyone? So you've got. I was thinking about this. When I did my yoga training, and that was only 2016, the idea of doing anything less than a 90-minute yoga practice was like outrageous. But the reality is now, like, you're going to get a 45-minute class to teach. If you're lucky, you'll get an hour,
Mm.
right? So, we're going into still these shorter sessions, and they're going to be more available. People have to be in several different places at once. You can't just be live, and it doesn't mean that you have to run online classes, but you're going to have to just be more available in different ways. So that might be, your mailing list or whatever, because people want that sense of, I feel like people want more of that sense of community contact.
Right.
Um, so there's lots of that building, but I think there will always be a place for live, 100%. But it's really difficult to judge actually how that will look, even the
Mm.
next 2 years, because of everything economically that's going on. I'm really lucky actually. The gyms where I live, they at the moment, fingers crossed, they don't seem to be reducing anything massively. They're keeping it.
Mm-hmm.
There is, more reliance on virtual. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Um, but I think, we need to be much more proactive in the conversations we're having
With whom?
with gyms, with people, because actually you need to know what people want.
Mm.
And I sense sometimes as an industry, we're not that good at just asking people what they want. We're not, I don't know if that's a courage thing, maybe, or if it's so bound financially that, okay, we're only able to do this, so we're only going to do that. And there's a lack
Mm.
of flexibility there, maybe, I don't know. But there's definitely more shifting to hybrid. But also, that's a good thing for us as instructors because we have all these skills, like, so use them, give people,
Mm.
like, I'll just send people like people always ask me for neck stretches and wrist stuff. So I'm like, okay, I just filmed a little thing in my lounge here and I just send it to people. I'm like, here, have it. It's fine. So it'll be 20 minutes, right? So it just builds that trust so that when and if you decide to then, what's the word, elaborate, increase your toolbox into stuff like massage, to give myself as an example,
Mm.
that trust.
Mm.
So it's the onus is, I think, is on us to do more of the work to get our work. But if I don't know, I kind of feel like if you're in it for the right reasons, it comes quite naturally anyway.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
but it takes time. It takes time. But yeah, I think we just need to be more proactive across the board. You can make yourself work, as in create
Mm.
for yourself. I think there's certainly room for people like yourself who have the skill to teach other people that skill.
Mm.
And that's a real growth area for people as well.
Mm. Yes, it's interesting. I think we're kind of at an interesting space, isn't it? Because
Mhm.
the group fitness industry itself is relatively young compared to other industries around, and but I kind of feel that this is a real pivotal period. We've it's pretty much been the same, isn't it? This whole time, but the last 2 years has kind of like pushed the whole digital
Yeah.
online space up faster. I think we probably would have got there, but I think it's just been sped up really.
Mm.
And so we need to maybe consider that and what we can do with that space.
Yeah. I think for me also, like there is a business unit, I think, still in the level 3 PT. I mean, that just needs to either just go and fill it with better physiological stuff, or it just needs to be really sharpened. Um,
Mm.
because it's quite interesting when you get some of the younger people through on modules and things like they because they are digital natives, like their ability to kind of manipulate app based stuff is really good. It's really, really good. But then some of their other kind of more basic IT skills are a little bit lacking sometimes. So it's just like actually as an industry at the top end, a lot of the syllabus work is still quite, as you say, it's the same as it was certainly when I trained. So can we please sharpen that a little bit to make it more relevant to what's going on now?
Mm.
So that those that are coming out don't need to have such a steep learning curve. But also, for example, they don't just think that, posting pictures of themselves on Instagram with nothing really of any value behind it is going to make them squillions of pounds.
Mm.
Because followers doesn't equal pounds necessarily, right?
No.
So, and I think that's really, that part of the business side of stuff is something that could really be improved from an education point of view. But it's how often do those things get reviewed?
I don't. I mean, obviously, I did my training like God knows how many years ago. But when I did my training, there was business. There was like a business module within within the personal training
Mm.
qualification, but there wasn't in group fitness.
No, and I don't think it was in any of my. I don't think it was in my level 3 Pilates either. From memory.
Should be though, really, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
The really. But isn't that an interesting assumption back then to think that only PTs need to understand the some business, they need some business skills, but the group fitness instructor doesn't,
Yeah.
and Pilates and yoga.
When those people that are going to go out and hire the halls and actually need to know it, whereas if you're a PT, if you're dealing with, for example, heavy level strength training, you have to have a gym, so you're probably going to go into a gym environment initially. So yeah, it's very interesting, and I think it can be quite interesting. I think it's one of those things you've got to be really open-minded about, because we can get quite nervous about it and almost shrink inwards a little bit. And it's like, do you know what? Learn it, because it's really interesting. If you allow it to be interesting, it will be interesting. If you can make it relevant to what you're doing, then it becomes interesting. You don't need to be frightened of it. You have to put yourself out there a little bit, which I still struggle with. But it gets easier, and it will help. Like, it is just getting through the difficult bits. And I think actually the work with Les Mills that we do and around kind of, what are your values, and that will help you hone that. And it helps you hone the message. So again, there's, maybe some work around, whys and values and all that stuff, which is more of a coaching thing, really.
So at this time where we're chatting, what are you focusing on working on right now for yourself?
For me, so I want to, so I have a small community of people who I do my workshops for. So my focus for next year is to actually be not more organized, because I can organize them and they're good and they're fine. But what I'd like to do is to find a way to, maybe bundle them with some more educational resource, just short stuff, like nothing too heavy. And then offering that out, and maybe a different version of it to instructors as well. So that for me then really, really boils down to how am I dividing my time up, and how well am I using my time? So I was very clear after lockdown I wasn't going to go out and teach again live in the evenings in gyms, and I haven't, and I've stuck to it. I'm so proud of myself.
That's good.
Because I was like, I'm schlepping. It's only 10 miles, let's say, but it's taking me an hour to get there. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. So then I might finish my live teaching. I think the latest I finish is 3 in the afternoon. That's one day a week. The others are all earlier. So then I've just got that long afternoon to really focus, sit down. Also really suits my kind of introvertedness, because I've got the peopling in the morning and then quiet time in the afternoon. So actually that's worked out really, really well. So now it's just, how am I managing workload? Can I just be a little bit more efficient? Can I get some slightly different systems in place? I would like to get better at automating stuff. I'm quite good at it, but it's, finding the time then to go and find this program, can I find stuff that will help other things talk to each other, blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff. So
Mm,
I actually really enjoy that. That's
mm.
my coming out. I really like that, but it's just okay. Where am I going to get the time to do that?
That's the thing. It's like I enjoy that stuff as well, and I enjoy playing around on Canva and things. But then at some point, I think, but I'm just playing now. This is time. It's not really generating me any money just yet. I'm just sitting here hours later. I'm like, oh, look at this app and look at that app.
You should start a group and then delegate. Each person has an app to investigate, like book group, but it's app group.
Yeah, I've done this before with other, like, outside of fitness, where I'm part of a coaching program where you actually have co-working time.
See, I've seen that. How does that work? Does it work well for
Yeah,
you?
so if it's basically, you've got, say, actually the one coaching program I was on, it was at the end of the month, and it was like a 3-hour block, and you just log on to Zoom whenever during that 3-hour block. You can use part of it, all of it, but you've got your camera on,
Mm-hmm.
but you're muted, and then everyone's just doing their end of month work and basically get shit done. But one of the instructors I know, she's found on a website that's to do with co-working, and you just book a time slot.
Please, can you send me the name of that? I feel like that might.
I'll have to find out. But she says it's fantastic. You just book a time slot, and it'd be complete random strangers, right? But you're muted and you're on Zoom, and I think, I can't remember how it works, whether you got to say this is what I'm working on or something, and you can't, like, sit there and play games or anything else. But
That's really good, because if you did that and then you could choose, let's say, for example, the jobs that you really don't like doing, couldn't you? Like, I don't know, for me, maybe social media posts, then you've just got to sit down and do it. Oh my God, that's inspired.
yeah, I do. So, like, so my coaching group, every Sunday, I sit down afternoon generally, if I'm not working, and like, plan my week,
Mm-hmm.
do any social media posts that I know definitely need to go out. I prefer ad hoc posting because I find it more natural. It works better for me, but sometimes you need to, because if you've got a workshop coming up or whatever. And so I've opened that out to the people in my coaching group. So again, it's just that we're on Zoom, and you use that hour to plan your week and get your week sorted.
How do you find that, the difference between doing that with people you don't know versus people you do? Because I would be really tempted to have a chat if it was with people I knew.
Yeah, I think I just literally have it on, whether they come on or not, because it doesn't suit everybody, right?
Mm,
But when you do come on, like, I'm on mute, I would just actually say hi,
mhm.
and then I'll say, you know what you're working on? Yeah. And they might share it, they might not. And then cool, mute. That's it.
I like that
She's Her brain's
idea. The
ticking now.
brain's getting I've got a piece of paper, because I always have a piece of paper when I talk to you, Ansi, and I take notes.
Cool. So what does the future hold for Rhian?
Oh, I I would like to get more into, for me, if anyone out there is listening, um, creation of education content. So it's really just taking the stuff that I know and disseminating it. I think, yeah, I still love teaching. I really love it. It's insane. Like, I've got all of next week off, and I'm already a bit like, oh, I'm gonna miss doing it. But I need the rest, so it's fine.
Mm.
But yeah, I think it's just at that point where your brain is full of interesting things. You want to share them, and for me, it's what do I want to share, and I kind of have an idea around that. Um, I'm crystallizing in my mind, like, really, who do I want to share it with?
Mhm.
then the how will come after that, for me, because my clients, in terms of, workshop people and classes, that it shifted a little bit. They're a little bit older these days, but they are physically, I mean, gosh, they're so, it's inspiring. Like, they are so committed, they're so dedicated. They are actually more capable than a lot of people in their, let's say, 30s. Um, and I find that fascinating and wonderful and inspiring.
Mm.
I shift, into a slightly different age bracket, let's say.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's just as my interest shifts, how what does that look like? How does it manifest? So yeah, I'm excited. It's very exciting. I just I feel my energy has changed. I used to be very, very frantic. I would happily teach. I think at one point 7 body pumps, 4 attacks, and 4 combats a week. I'm not that person anymore. I'm not that person anymore. I feel like I'm going back to my slightly geeky roots, which I'm loving. Actually, I'm really loving. So yeah, so it's coming full circle, which is really nice.
I do think that, though. I think that those full circle moments, tend to happen with a lot of us, especially, it's like, I don't know. There's a saying, isn't there, when it comes to relationships, like if you love somebody, let them go. If they come back, they're yours, right? But I think it's the same with, what we do. If you're meant to be doing something,
Mhm.
then it will, we kind of go off and, etc. But we do come back full circle. I really definitely do think that.
Mm.
I definitely do think that. Um, if you could sum up, if you could use just one word
Mm.
when it comes to what group fitness means for you, what would that one word be?
Oh, is it allowed to be hyphenated? It's deeply too. One word.
What would your hyphenated word be?
I'm going to say my one word would be fulfillment. Uh, yeah, for my own fulfillment personally, in terms of the movement for my own body, and that keeps me sane. Um, and it's that, yeah, it gives me that very strong sense of purpose that I need to feel fulfilled in a professional way as well.
Mm. That's a great word, because it makes me think about, you know, not just those of us that are teaching in the industry, but just people as a whole.
Mm.
How many people can really say, if you're in a room with 10 people, how many can really say that they're living a very fulfilled life? I don't think many would be able to say that.
I'm very lucky.
We are, though, aren't we? We are really to be able to do that, which is amazing. So to close off,
Mm.
for anyone who's in this industry, either been around a long time or anyone that's starting out right now, what would your key messages be for them, or tips?
Um, a combination of trust your gut in terms of what you want to do within it. So if you naturally feel like you want to go against the grain, do it. Um, but be discerning with it,
Hmm.
and find a way to enjoy being yourself within it, because you will naturally attract your people anyway. That's actually the hardest.
Mm. That I found that really hard,
Yeah.
and I think because it's still I still feel it is quite a extroverted industry to be in,
Mm.
and there's this huge energy and vortex that you can so easily get sucked into, and you lose yourself in that, and that's the hardest bit, to kind of be true, to being yourself. Yeah, yeah. Cool. Thank you very much, Rhian.
Thank you. I love talking to you. Oh.
That's good. I mean, you've given me lots of ideas. So, like, I've been writing stuff down too.
Like the two shyest people ever. We've been talking for nearly an hour. Oh my goodness.
But I think that's the other thing. I think people need to realize that it's okay.
Mm.
And I think for me, like when I started out, I almost like tried too hard to be extroverted, to be this other, because that's what I think that people want. And it's so draining on yourself. And it's really not very healthy long term. But then is that something that just happens as you get older? You just go, don't care. Do we don't care now?
This is it, peeps.
No. So thank you so much for your time. And yeah, and where can listeners find you? And
So
connect with you?
I am on Instagram. I think I'm just Rhian Toates. So if you could write my name in the notes, because it's spelled
Yeah, I
really.
will do.
And then I'm on Facebook as well. Yeah, just get in touch. It'll be interesting to chat. I might message you or email you rather than actually talk to you, as the introvert that I am.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you.